Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Genius Sport podcast with Naim. My guest today is someone who I've been following for quite some time. So much so that I was encouraged to order one of his many books named Be Champion Minded. Since then, I have been religiously reading this book and often visiting many topics repeatedly since I find them to be very interesting myself. The author, Mr. Allistair McCaw, is one of the world's leading figures in human performance, mindset, and leadership with over 25 years experience. Mr. Allistair McCaw has worked with many Olympians, Grand Slam champions, NCAA colleges, and professional sports teams. An author for best-selling books, Mr. Allistair McCaw consults with partners and sports teams across the globe, assisting them in igniting their true potential. Now, without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Allistair McCaw. Hello, Mr. McCaw, and welcome to the Genius Sport podcast with Naim.
Thanks very much for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, thank you as well. I want to thank you again for the chance to have to talk to you on this platform where you can educate myself as well as the world on becoming champion-minded.
Sure, absolutely. I'm all ready for it.
Super. First, I would like to ask you, how is the situation where you are currently? What's going on with this COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, obviously it's not the ideal thing, but it's been the same for all of us all over the world the last 12 months. Some have tougher lockdowns than others. Obviously, the UK at the moment, it seems like they have an extremely tough lockdown, and parts of Europe as well. But to be honest, here in Florida, it's been okay. It's still business as usual, which is good for the economy. Obviously, there's obviously still the restrictions and the procedures in place with regards, obviously, masks, social distancing, and so on and so forth. So, but it's good to see that, restaurants and schools and so on are back open again, which is important. And because obviously businesses are suffering and already seen some close down, so that's a positive thing. But obviously travel is not possible at the moment, which is a pity. I love to travel. I'm usually more on the road. I'm on the road more than 200 days a year, so I'm really missing being out there. I'm very much a face-to-face person. I love to feel the energy of people, which you can't so much across Zoom. But we've got to be grateful and thankful for things like Zoom and Microsoft and these video messaging platforms and social media, because I was just chatting to someone yesterday that 25 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do this as easily. So we're pretty fortunate.
Okay, well, I didn't know that you were in Florida, so the weather must be also quite nice there.
Yeah, it's good. It's still pretty much in the late 20s, 27, 28 degrees, and it's still winter here in a way. So we can't complain about that now.
Okay, because we're just beginning spring here in Denmark, and it's only 6 degrees outside. Quite great still, but like you say, similar situation here. Actually, schools are open next week, so we're hoping to have a better flow. Yeah. So, Mr. McCaw, I would like to kickstart today with a rapid fire session as an icebreaker before we get down to business. Are you ready?
Oh, you get right into it. Just call me Allistair.
Okay, Allistair, thank you. So, question number one, your favorite country in the world and why?
Ooh, wow. That's a tough one. I love living here in the United States. My roots will always be in South Africa. I love Scotland. I find the people very warm there, and I love the humor as well. They laugh a lot. So, but there's so many countries I've been to that I love. Australia is nice. I've been to Denmark, of course, which is beautiful as well. So yeah, it's so difficult to say. Every country has something unique in it, I suppose.
Okay, I totally understand. If I had to choose, I couldn't choose one myself, but fair enough. Question number two, what are your most favorite colors, and do they have any special meaning to you?
Yeah, I would say red, because of my favorite soccer team being Liverpool since I was a young kid, and you can see in my office I have a lot of red things with my chair and my lamp and all the type of thing.
Okay.
Red would be one. I'm also a big fan of I think it's turquoise or like an aqua type of blue. It's the color that Mercedes-Benz Formula One team have,
Okay.
I love that color as well. It just seems so calming.
Okay. Question number 3. What's the best thing that has happened to you in the past year?
I think definitely in the past year, and I'm sure a lot of people will relate, is that we've got to know ourselves a lot better, for better or for worse. I've had some real tough meetings with myself, which have not been easy to confront in a way, because sometimes we can run from our problems, and in a way, yes, I love traveling and being on the road, but I'd never be at home long enough to really get to know myself, if that really makes sense in a way. When you spend more time with yourself, it can be scary. And I think part of being uncomfortable being alone or spending a lot of time with yourself is there's things that you're not confronting about yourself. So you're running the whole time. So, I think that's the one thing that's really, really been massive for me in the last year, is that there's some things I've had to confront. Like we all have problems, we all have challenges, we all have things we don't like about ourselves. And I think it's been good.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I can agree with you when you say you've learned more about yourself. Definitely agree. Question number 4. Name one thing you've learned the hard way.
I would say there's something you can't take words back. So words you've said to somebody that have maybe been hurtful or nasty or mean in the past, and we've all done that. And then you lose either a good friend or a good relationship or a good partner because of that. So that's pretty hard, and you learn the hard way, but it teaches you lessons.
So I'm guessing the saying "sticks and stone may break my bones, but words never hurt me" has some relation there.
Yeah, and that's a very untrue statement as well. Words do harm you.
Yeah. Question number 5. What's the favorite part of your current job?
Definitely connecting with people, and that's why I said in the beginning there, I miss the human face-to-face element. That's been the toughest thing for me this pandemic, and I think for most people, when I put questions out there on my Twitter, what's been the toughest challenge for you, or what do you miss the most, people don't say material things or whatever, they say people. When they say I miss badminton practice or squash practice or soccer practice, whatever it may be, music practice, they're really in essence saying they miss the environment and they miss people.
Yeah, okay. And the last question for this segment, it's what is your favorite movie quote?
My favorite movie?
Yeah, movie quote.
Quote.
Oh,
quote. My favorite movie quote. I don't watch a lot of movies, but my favorite quote is "Excellence is an attitude," which is on my t-shirts.
Okay.
My favorite. You know what? I know what it is. It's from Jerry Maguire. The line where he says, "Help me help you." So in other words, in the movie, I don't know if you've seen Jerry Maguire, but
I don't think I have.
He's a sports agent working with a football player who's fallen a little bit from grace because of his ego and his attitude, and he's been dropped from the team and dropped from the franchise. And Jerry Maguire, which is played by Tom Cruise, is trying to get him another contract, trying to get him another franchise. And this player is has such a massive ego that he puts people off. He showboats. He's not exactly the example of humility. And he doesn't really share much. He doesn't talk much. And then there's one scene where Jerry, like, just in desperation says, "Help me help you." Like, tell me what I can do to help you. And it's something that relates to me in coaching as well, is that to improve as a player or as a musician or whatever you're learning, you need to give feedback to your teachers, professors, coaches to help yourself. You can't always just be waiting for them or expecting them to know what you're thinking or to know what you need. So it's a line that's pretty powerful, is, yeah, help me help you.
Okay, I can really relate to that because here in Denmark, they focus so much here on the feedback from the players as well, not just, listening to the coach and thinking, oh, I can't do what he's doing today because I don't feel like it. But you must share how you feel and what you think, and maybe something can be worked out
Is
then.
that something in the coaching you find there in Denmark they do a lot? Is that they encourage you to share more?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Not just the coaches, but the players too. I mean, they always want to know what they can do better or what you want to focus on and what you think you need to develop in this area, or how do you feel, a lot about instinct, a lot about how you feel on the inside and what you feel comfortable with. So feedback is definitely a key role here in the development in Denmark.
What sport are you in, if I may ask?
Badminton.
Oh, badminton. Oh, nice.
Yes.
Love badminton. I was in Basel 2 years ago for the coaching conference there, the World Coaching Conference, and got to watch the World Champs. I think it was the World Champs that week.
Yeah, I was actually supposed to be there for a coaching conference as well, but I couldn't make it. I was stuck in Denmark at that time, and it would have. I was aware of that you were going to be there as well, so I was quite excited to have the chance to go to the conference and also meet you, but didn't happen.
Well, maybe hopefully one day soon. But yeah, it was amazing. I mean, watching, it was the first time I'd watched badminton live at that level. You know, I've seen club level, and I've attended one of the US practices here in Florida a few years ago, which I was impressed with the techniques of their coaching and so on and so forth. But watching world-class badminton was just phenomenal. I mean, the speed, you can't really see it as much on TV. It's impressive.
Yeah.
But when you sit and you watch it live, it's incredible. I mean, I can just remember tweeting and texting, professional friends I have in tennis and squash and all that, and just saying, this is amazing,
Yeah, it's definitely an incredible sport. Now, Alistair, now that we're talking about sport, can I ask what history do you have with sport?
What history?
Yes.
How much
A brief
time
history.
do you have? Brought up with sporty brothers. I had three brothers. There was always games in the backyard, be it, we were brought up in South Africa, so it would be lots of sports. The weather was good, so you'd be playing cricket, soccer, rugby, tennis, running, all these things all the time. My afternoons were just filled with sports. I wanted to be a professional tennis player when I was very young. I got to a good level in juniors, but we just couldn't afford the coaching and afford the amount of money it took to develop to those next levels. As you know, it starts to require a lot of money and travel, and we just didn't have that. So took up running because it wouldn't cost me anything. And I was the under 16 South African 5K champion, and then went on to have a good career in duathlon, where I competed in 5 world championships and had a good career. Very, very grateful for that. But sport has always been a massive part of my life. I'm very, very privileged and honored to now call this a job, working with a lot of athletes and corporates and so on and so forth, and being able to go to big sports events and be able to go, in the background and backstage, so to say, and just take in everything. So for me, it's like going to Disneyland every day. I still appreciate and I'm grateful for absolutely every opportunity to go to a big sports event and be part of it.
Okay. Duathlon is running and cycling, is it?
Correct. Yes, it's triathlon without the swimming.
Okay, super. And how did you develop the idea of champion minded?
From a young age, I wasn't the most talented, kid in sports, but I did realize very early that if I worked hard, if I practiced harder than the rest, if I brought a good attitude, if I worked hard on the things that don't require talent, and I say that in air quotes, then I would give myself a better chance. So luckily, I caught on to that very early, where it gave me a lot of motivation to beat athletes who were way more talented than me. So teammates and players and other athletes who were better than me, younger. It was always my goal to get better than them. So that was my benchmark. And I enjoyed that, knowing that I wasn't always the first pick, but I knew my attitude and work ethic would get me further. So that was the brainchild for my book, Champion Minded, was, the things that you can control: time management, work ethic, body language, attitude, effort, energy, consistency, work ethic, self-discipline. That, if you give all those things your best effort, you will be successful.
Which we're going to get right into right now. So topic number one I'd like to discuss today is habits. What is your definition of habits?
Definition of habits. It's something you're basically doing on default. And 40% of what we do on a daily basis is habitual. In other words, you're not even realizing you're doing it. It's the subconscious. So yeah, I would say habits, though I've never been asked that actually, is what you do on default. So you're not even conscious of it in a way.
But why should athletes develop habits? I mean, yes, they are automatic, but why should athletes develop them?
Obviously, they should develop good habits and eliminate poor habits, of course. But basically, habits is very much related to your success or failure rate. So there's a great quote that I love: is that first you make your habits, and then your habits make you. I can't remember who said that, but I love that because it's absolutely true. You make your habits. You decide what how you're going to live on a daily basis. Is your habits, a Twinkies breakfast and sugar-filled Starbucks vanilla coffee or whatever it may be? Those are habits. They start to become habits. For example, little things of what time you leave for practice, what time you leave for school, how you prepare. These all become habits. They become habitual. Or you can decide to discipline yourself. And the first act of discipline in the day is making your bed, which I still do to this day and will forever. Because what is discipline? Discipline is doing something you don't necessarily feel like doing. And nobody feels like getting up in the morning and exactly making their bed. They don't like go, yay, I can't wait to make my bed this morning. No, you do it because it's for me, it's the first act of discipline in the day. As I said, it's pride that I made my bed. I slept in my bed, so I should make my bed. Even when I'm staying in a hotel, for example, I'll make my bed. Even the day I leave the hotel, I'll make my bed, even though I know the sheets are going to be changed and cleaned and taken off. It's the principle. It's the principle behind it, that I don't expect somebody else to make my bed. So that's a habit. As much as, habits are very much linked to discipline. And I think that's going to be one of my next quotes. So thank you so much for that idea.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm just trying to get as much information as I can.
And I tell you what another great habit is what I'm doing right now is I always have paper and pen with me when I'm talking to somebody. And, because this is the great thing about speaking to other people, is that they open up your ideas, that your mind as well, about things, and make you think about things. It doesn't matter who it is. I'm in this almost 30 years, never mind 25 years. I've got to update my resume maybe, but speaking to even people that have been in this for a year, I learn. I'm open to learning. I'm never sitting in front of somebody and thinking, well, what do you know? I've done this and I've done that. And so for me, I'm always, as I do on this podcast, my time is very limited, but I'm very interested to hear what you have to say and what you have to think. But one of my habits is writing things down, and that's a habit, because you can't remember everything. I mean, how many times have you listened to a podcast or listen to say, okay, I'll remember that when I get home, and then you get home and you're like, what was that? And you can't remember it, and that's normal. Yeah. So yeah, I write things down.
But what about a vision board compared to making a checklist? I mean, yeah, it's a really good idea to write.
My vision. Yeah, vision boards are good, but I'm not going to carry that with me in the car and everywhere else, because your ideas come up everywhere. That's another thing. I mean, yeah, vision boards are great. I've actually got one downstairs in the kitchen, which, I'll just write on the board. It's like you can erase it out, but I'll just write a quote or write something I'm thinking, or a goal if I'm going to be running a marathon. and I look at that board, and before I take a bad choice out of the fridge, like something that's filled with sugar late at night, I look at that board and it says marathon in 2 months. How are you going to feel when you're running the last 2 miles? You're going to be thinking of that sugar-filled cake that you just had that night. I mean, that's some of the things I think about. So yeah.
Okay. But how would habit help influence the lifestyle, both as an athlete and as an individual? I mean, we all want to be early to practice and make our bets, but how would the habits influence our results as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. For example, 4 or 5 years ago, I was called by a former world number one in squash, really, really talented Egyptian guy, to help him prepare for World Championships, which was going to be in Qatar that year. I think it was maybe 2014, so even longer ago. And he'd been injured the whole year and he'd been out, but he was arguably probably one of the best players in the world ever. His name was actually Ramy Ashour. And for me to help an athlete, it's not just giving them a program and saying, here, do this, and this is going to guarantee success. I want to know what you're doing, and I call this in the Champion Minded book. And if you've read the book, which I think you have, it's called The Other 20 Hours. What do you do? An elite athlete trains about 4 hours a day on average, and that's, well, dedicates 4 hours a day to their craft. So your training, your physical, maybe massage, foam rolling, all these things should be 4 hours. You should be doing 4 hours a day if you're wanting to be elite level. Mm-hmm. So I want to know what you're doing the other 20 hours of the day, because the ratio of 20 hours to 4 is what? 6 to 1. Is it? Did I get that math right? 6 fours is 24.
24.
Yeah. So it's 6 to 1, the ratio. What are you doing the other 20 hours of that day? What time are you getting up? What type of breakfast are you having? What's the environment like that you're growing up in?
How much sleep do you get?
What's that?
How much sleep do you get as well, right? Would have an effect.
Yeah, all these small things. What time you leave for practice? How you warm up? What type of practice you have? Analyzing the practice that you did have. What did you do well? What didn't you do well? The lunch you have, the nap you have, the second practice you have. All these things, the time you have for studies, blah, blah, blah. That's really what sets you up for success. So what are those things? What are those habits that you've built in the 20 hours? Not just the habits you've built on the court, or when you get to the practice facility, like, oh, it's a good habit to warm up. Well, that's a given. I mean, if you want to be a professional athlete and you want to stay injury free, then that's a given. One of the things I've seen in the least injured athletes and the best athletes I've worked with is that they're very, very meticulous and thorough in everything. The food they eat, the amount of hydration they have, the time they get to practice, the way they warm up, the length of their warm up is very detailed in that, because they leave no stone unturned. They warm up thoroughly, and it's always the same. For example, I just know, and a lot of talented athletes, they produce great results and then they disappear for a while and they come back and there's no momentum. One of the key things about confidence comes down to these 3 things. It's preparation, how well you prepare. It's self-talk, because you can talk yourself in or out of anything, no matter how well prepared you are. You can start to talk yourself out of it. And the third one is momentum. You need momentum to gain confidence. Matches, practices. When you're getting injured, when you're getting interruptions, you don't build momentum. It's like a stop-start the whole time. Yeah. So confidence comes from those 3 things, and you've read it in the book as well. I'm sure. Yeah. Is preparation plus self-talk plus momentum equals confidence.
Super. Thank you for a reminder as well. I have the book just next to me here. I'm always just touching in to see what I can learn again or what I can reiterate on. Topic number 2 for today, it's failure. Now, why should we not fear failure?
because it's our best teacher. Because the opposite of success is the opposite of failure is, or should I say, the opposite of success is not failure; it's a part of it. And there's no one successful that's made it without multiple failures along the way, because they're your best teacher. It's basically, I think it was Einstein that said, I've, failed a thousand times, but it's taught me what not to do. I know I just butchered that, but basically your failures teach you of what you shouldn't do next time. So, that's why failure is so important of how we see it. And I think it's very important for coaches, especially working with younger athletes, is to teach them about failure, because you're gonna fail in your life, and how you respond to that gauges how well you bounce back, how quickly you bounce back, how you can deal with things in life. Because again, what Champion Minded, the book is not just about excellence in sports. The title is Excellence in Sports and Life. And I believe sports is a great medium to teach us lessons on how to deal with failure, especially how to deal with success. I've seen, and I was actually just speaking to a coach this morning who's in Singapore right now, where he was talking about one of the junior players they have, and the kid is now doing very well and very talented and might break through to professional level, and how the whole family have changed once this kid started to get success. They started to become more demanding, more threatening. The kid has changed. There's been a bit of an entitlement there, and success can change you as well, just as much as failure can. But how do you respond to it? One of the biggest admirations I have, and I obviously have a great podcast, if I could just humbly say that. I don't mean that as my podcast is great. I'm saying I have a great guests on my podcast. So let me just reword that. Is that you get to speak to people about failure is usually one of my topics. And one of the most admirable things for me in successful people, famous people, if you want to call it, is humility. And I've had some great people on the podcast, professional tennis players, football players from Manchester United, Liverpool, all these amazing places. And when they come across with humility, and the way is really very attractive. It's a very attractive quality of a person when they've been very successful, but they still have time for people. They're still respectful, mannered,
humble.
That's a really great quality. It's always been a disappointment for me. I'm not going to name names, but I can think of people where, I also have my people that, I can't wait to meet. And I've been around a lot of famous people, luckily, or fortunately. And then you can't wait to meet a certain person that maybe you've watched on TV as a kid, playing soccer or whatever sport. And then you realize that they're just not a nice person. And it's almost like a disappointment, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I've had a similar experience, but not where I didn't like them, but like you say, they have so much success and they are so humble. They have respect for everyone. It's like the first time I met Malaysia legend Lee Chong Wei in Australia. He just won the tournament, and I just walked up to him and I asked if I can get a picture, and he said yes, of course. Then I asked him if I can have a T-shirt, and he said, yeah, just follow me and I can sign it for you. We can take a picture again, and this is yours. And up to this day, I can never forget the moment where he just said, follow me. No problem. That's okay. He answered me with a big smile. And that to me means so much, because I've been watching him for many, many years, and looking up to him, idolizing him, watching his every movement. And to know that when you meet them, it's finally so memorable. It meant so much. Yeah, no, that is real quality. I try to do it as well. Sometimes when I'm at tournaments or something, and not that I'm famous or anything, but maybe someone that follows me, I had it in a supermarket, actually in Basel when I was there. There was a player from, was she from Thailand or Singapore? I can't remember. And she saw me in the supermarket and she was like, hey, can I get a photo with you? And I was shocked. I was just like, okay, I mean, somebody recognized me, which is incredible. And it's just, I feel so privileged that can happen, and you just want to leave you want to leave them in a better impression of you
you
Yeah.
know. I've 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 been around environments in professional sports where I get it, you know, it's difficult to sign autographs for 200 people
Hmm.
every time you step out the door. I mean, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
Someone's going to get let down, and it's unfortunate, but I mean, you look at Roger Federer, Nadal. I've been around them a lot, practicing and in matches, etc. And it just amazes me how much time they have for people, and they're doing that every single day. You know, what was I watching yesterday on TV? I don't watch TV much. No, I always watch documentaries and stuff.
Okay.
Excuse me if I'm just rambling on here, but who was it? And I think I've even forgotten what I was going to say actually. Yeah, that just got a brain. Basically,
Yeah.
someone that just saying, um, they just find it a privilege every day to be able to be asked to take a picture or sign something for somebody else. You know, that impression leaves. You know, even if I look in my office right now,
Yeah, I can see behind you a lot of
yeah, but
signed T-shirts.
there you go. That stuff. That's for me. I don't do it because of look at me. I look at those and go, those are for me. I look at those and
Yeah.
go, well, I can't believe I was there, or I can't believe I met that person or worked
Yeah.
with that person. That for me is not like something of an ego thing of look what I've done. It's more like I'm like a little kid.
Yeah.
I just love that. It's like you getting something signed by your favorite player or person, and you just look at that thing at night before you go to sleep, and go, wow, this person actually touched this cup.
Yeah.
I've got Neymar's jersey over there on the left, and Djokovic's hat here that they wore signed, and um, those for me are the most like coolest things.
Thank you, Alistair. Now, earlier you said that failure, we should not do what we did to have that failure again. So let's say I'm playing a match and, opponent is really good, but I'm also playing a really, really good game. I've put in many hours, training, strength room, whatever. And I lose or I fail or whatever you want to call it. It's going to have a mental effect on me then, because you played really well, you put in the work. How should I face that battle in my head then, knowing that I put in all the work, yet still I've failed?
Yeah, first of all, choice of words is very important. You know, what you say to yourself is very, very important, but you should be proud of the effort you put in. You know, there's no such thing as a perfect practice or match. There's perfect effort, and that's what you can control. Like you said there, you can play your best ever, and you know what seems to happen is we play sometimes our best against someone that's way better than us, because we rise to the occasion, and in a way we've got nothing to lose, if you want to call it that. So all these mental things, which I'm sure will trigger with your listeners and yourself, is when you play someone lower ranked than you, or especially someone in your club or from your country where you're expected to beat them, these are all like added little bits of pressure, because you're expected. Expectations is a massive thing in terms of pressure, of like what you're expected to do. So it's important that you see your performance and what you gave for that as your most important measurement, not necessarily the result. Yes, we all want to win, we love to win, but I would be far more happier to let me put it this way. I wanted to be world champion in duathlon.
Mm-hmm.
I finished second in the world, and
Congratulations.
Thanks. It was a bittersweet feeling of I failed. I didn't win. I came second. Wow, that's not bad in the world. Okay, that's a decent result. But it was a bittersweet feeling. But once I'd gotten over that, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I cried as I crossed the finish line because I was disappointed. It was that feeling of emotions of happy, sad.
Yeah.
Like the journey had come to an end for me, of years and years of early mornings, late nights, all these things, injuries, blah, 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 as any athlete knows. And and then once I had time to process everything, I thought about what I gave for that. And I asked myself, what do I regret? What, you know, and honestly, there was nothing. I'd done everything I could, everything in my will to do it. It was my best race ever, not because I was second, but I mean, I've won lots of races, but I lost that one. But it's my best race ever because it was my best performance. My running time was the best. My bike time was the best. My transitions were the best ever. But I still came second. And the person that beat me was better than me that day. They were 45 seconds better than me over a race that was over 2 hours. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was a 2 hour 17 marathon runner. So that's what I had to compete against on the last run, for example. So that's an example of I performed my best ever. It was my best race ever, but I didn't win.
Okay.
I have to be happy with it.
Yeah, definitely. Earlier you mentioned, we talked about expectation. Now, how should one avoid expectation and play fearless and free?
It depends what you place your expectation on. If you're placing your expectation on outcomes, then that creates an unnecessary pressure.
Okay.
Let me write that down. That's good, actually. Not because I'm just saying it, but I like to remember these things. So placing outcomes, and while you're doing this, listeners can write it down as well. Placing outcomes provides expectation, and that provides pressure. So
I'm happy I can open up your mind a little bit. It gives me so much confidence now in what I'm doing. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's maybe I haven't said it that way before, but I'm saying it now, and I think, okay, let me write that down because I won't remember that after the conversation.
Yeah.
So when you're putting expectation on outcomes, that creates unnecessary pressure, and obviously pressure affects performance. But when you're placing expectations on what you can control, how's my attitude and mindset going to be today? How's my energy level going to be today? How's my preparation going to be? How's my body language going to be? How am I going to respond to not playing well, but still trying to figure out a way to win today? You know what? One of my definitions of mental toughness, and I have a few, is, one of them is doing the things you don't feel like doing is mental toughness. And another one is the ability to win on the days you're not playing well, you don't feel good, it's ugly, but you're still able to find a way. And that for me is one of the biggest differences between the next level you go up in. It's not necessarily skill, technique, strategy as much. Of course, it's important. It's your ability to handle the time that you're not playing good, you're not feeling good. You're thinking to yourself, I should be killing this guy. Can you get through that? That's mental toughness.
And this brings us to our third topic, mental toughness and dealing with nerves. So you've already explained what is mental toughness, but how should one develop mental toughness?
Every day creates an opportunity to develop mental toughness. Like I said, you've got to define what it is for yourself. It's like me saying to you, define success. One person will say a massive house and a nice Ferrari. Another person will say a happy family. One person will say winning a world championship will make me successful. Whatever, you got to define what it is. So you've got to define what that is for yourself as well. That's incredibly important.
Okay, and now, how does mental toughness and the term digging deep correlate?
How does mental toughness and what, sorry?
And the term digging deep, like, working extremely hard, but mental toughness, how did they both correlate?
You can't become mental tough in a match. That all happens way before that. Grit and resilience is provided by challenges, not just in sports, but in life. What you've had to overcome. And a massive part of being mental tough, if you want to call it, or being resilient or having grit, really comes from your upbringing. And most of the time, that's not your choice of how your parents bring you up. You're not exactly telling the house how it should be running at 12 years old, or you shouldn't be. But actually, I have seen it. You go to restaurants and kids are got the opportunity to choose whatever they want. Maybe I'm old fashioned, but back in my day, my parents would, choose what you were going to have that time, and that's all. You don't get a choice. That's how it is. These days, I find kids have too many choices at a too young an age. Maybe I'm old fashioned. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what was the question again? Sorry, completely went off that.
How does mental toughness and the term digging deep correlate?
Yeah. Again, it's the resilience and grit that you've had to overcome at a young age. Have you always been protected and coddled, and your parents are always fighting your own battles and so on, or are you out there facing it yourself? That doesn't mean your parents leave you to figure out the world, but you're also having to learn how to have tough conversations, to have accountability for mistakes you've made or things you've said or whatever it may be. That creates mental toughness and resilience as well, is facing things that are not pleasant and overcoming them, enduring them, because life is going to provide that.
Okay, so a lot of responsibility and accountability, as you say.
For sure.
Now, what can you say about an athlete who is mentally tough? I mean, you've seen them perform before, but on this day, they are overwhelmed, they have been overcome with nerves. How do you think they should handle that situation?
Yeah, every athlete feels nerves, and one of the things that helps with nerves is pre-match routines. I call them prepper readiness, of what you're doing the day of an event, and it should be the same. What time you get to the event, to the location, what time you eat, what time you start your warm up, all these small little things that helps with putting you in the right frame of mind. There's always going to be nerves, which is a good thing. And I've never met or worked with a professional athlete in the world, and I've worked with Olympic champions, world number ones, who get just as nervous as they did when they were a junior. And so it's how you see it as well. Nerves. I asked Roger Federer's coach 3 weeks ago on my podcast about it as well, and he said, nerves for me were a big part of me performing well, because it was like a way in adrenaline, and I always performed my best then as well. So it was very, very interesting to hear that.
Okay, so I'm guessing that what time you reach to the hall or the venue, or what you do prior to the match, what breakfast you have, are all routines or exercises that you recommend to have to deal with nerves better. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe every athlete, and this is something I look at as well, should have a routine of, especially on the match days, of how they lead up to their event. What time they warm up, what time they eat, snack, what time they get to the venue, and they should all stay consistent. Yes, it's a very, very important thing for the mindset of an athlete, is to create familiarity. That even if they're creating familiarity, no matter where you are, you could be in Denmark, you could be in the United States, everything looks different, but you're still doing the same routine and the same structure that you always have, no matter where you are in the world, for example. And that creates a familiarity, which gives you more peace in a way, and less anxiety, because your body will recognize when it's out of sync, of what am I doing? I'm warming up, I'm not warming up, I'm eating, I'm not eating, and you're letting things control you instead of you controlling things.
Okay, but you also need to be really alert about yourself and really know how you feel and have experience with yourself in the situation prior to what you're experiencing. Like we talked about earlier, in this Corona period, many people got to know about themselves. So in terms of dealing with nerves and having a routine, you really need to know what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
Absolutely. That's spot on.
Well, Allistair, that's all I have for you for today. And I would like to thank you so much for this opportunity to share knowledge with myself and also with the world on the Junior Sport podcast. You have definitely opened up my eyes a bit more, and I will definitely be reading Champion Minded probably again with us touching in. Is there anything additional you'd like to say?
Sure. I mean, if any of the followers out there want to find out more, they can go to my website, allistairmccall.com. If they're on social media, I'm on Instagram, Be Champion Minded, where I share some motivational tips and helpful things. I'm also on Twitter at Allistair McCaw and on Facebook, Allistair McCaw page. So I'd love to hear from you, and good luck to everybody out there. Stay champion minded. Remember, it's about the effort you give. That's the most important thing.
Thank you again, Alistair. Have a good day, and I wish you all the best in the future.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
Bye-bye. Wow, really what an honor it was to have Allistair McCaw on this podcast. I really hope that you all have learned something about being champion-minded, whether it's in life or sport. Remember to share this episode with all your friends as well as on your social media. And again, feedback is always welcome. So feel free to let me know what you think I can do better, or if you have any suggestions as to whom I can try to interview next. With that being said, I bid you farewell for now.